Hey, Nigerian exjw speaks here. I hope you are doing well. For those of you who are on my live stream on Sunday, that's like not that long ago, isn't it? And if you weren't there, join us next time. It's the last Sunday of every month. I have a live stream. I am trying this software, which means you can actually dial in and talk to me and we can have a two-way chat, which I would love. So definitely join us next time, last Sunday of the month. How are things? Things don't seem to be settling. You didn't ask for a news report, but seriously, what is going on with the second spikes in places and things are having to be shut down again? It's all crazy, but that's part of why I've chosen the topic that I wanted to talk about today. Because just today here in the UK, apparently 12,000 jobs are being lost in the last 48 hours. I think I read in America there's like 48 million people that have lost jobs. That's just a mind-boggling amount. That's a lot of families that are going to have their lives changed. And what it got me thinking about was, of course, tying into the JW space and thinking about how we relate to money, because there's a lot of reasons people are getting laid off. I mean, not least of all, global pandemic and what that means. But a lot of the times the difference between having your own thing versus not having your own thing, having something that is low paid and completely dispensable versus being very highly skilled, where even if you're laid off, you feel more confident about bouncing back. It all goes back to the foundation. And so I wanted to do a bit of a whistle stop today on my personal experiences. Now, some of you might share this experience as well, because of course, growing up in the witness faith, we're all learning the same thing every week. So some of you might be familiar, but just my perception, whistle stop about money growing up and how I was handled. And just like anything else, it's full of hypocrisy, it's flip-floppy, and does no good to the members. So at the very core, this is how I felt, at the very core, at the very foundation of what's being sown into the minds of the witnesses day in, day out, is that money is the root of all evil. That scriptures use a lot. You hear, keep your eyes simple. That was banged on about so much. Keep your eyes simple, keep your eyes simple. They have songs about it, articles about it. There's also, a love for using that, I don't know if you call it a parable or something, where you end up with, it is easier for a camel to get through a needle's eye than for a rich man to get into the kingdom of heaven. So all of that together, selling a narrative that, you don't want to have a lot of money. This is not a good thing. You get the sense that this is not a good thing. So that is what you have in the foundations. And growing up in a place like Nigeria, where unfortunately, that is the norm for a lot of people, they don't have a lot of it. And so that fits in. It's that sort of dumbing down. And it's okay. You can be poor. It's good. It's a good thing. You don't want it anyway. Then you have, on the flip side, you had one or two people in the congregation that had a bit more, that were more comfortable. And what I saw was people groveling towards them. So they treated them a little bit differently, definitely to their face, with the intention, expectation, sometimes even entitlement, that if they were in a difficult spot, they would expect those wealthier members of the congregation to buy them out. So there was that sense of groveling as well. Anyone who experienced this as well, please chime in. I want to hear your stories, because I get some great stories in the comment section, people who've had their own experiences as well. So you had that. You had the groveling. You had the sense of entitlement towards the wealthier members. On the flip side of that, though, behind the backs of these people, they were yapping on about them. They were, talking bad about them, and that they felt, accused them of feeling important, accused them of thinking they're better than everyone else. This is all conversations I heard both in and outside my house. This is my experience. So accusing them of feeling too important, accuse them of feeling too much of themselves, and sometimes even downright accuse them of having gotten the money dishonestly. Accuse them of having gone through dodgy means to get that wealth. All of this is happening behind their backs. So you have foundation people who believe money is bad. Some members who, by some stroke of luck, maybe they were not born into it and they had their money before they came in, or some other means they have it. You have people groveling towards them, treating them different. And then on top of that, on the flip side, they are bad-mouthing them. So that's confusing. That is very confusing for people who have intense love for one another. People who all will know that they're Jesus' disciples because they have love among themselves. This is what we're dealing with simultaneously. So that's confusing for a child. And then sort of widening out again. So getting away from the congregation level, which, of course, you learn more. In fact, I probably know more about how things work now that I've left compared to when I was in. So you have the organization as well in the literature, in conventions, discouraging people from taking jobs that, even though they pay them really well, are going to impact on how much time they can put into serving Watchtower. So those jobs are discouraged. They make videos about it. They tell them to quit those jobs, get away from those jobs. That's where it ties in with the higher education thing, which I've made a video about that. I'm going to link that somewhere. The very confusing information about higher education sort of ties into it. So the jobs you're discouraged from having. At the same time, you have the organization itself. It's a multi-billion property business. It used to be a multi-billion printing corporation. As they've done less printing, they've gone more into property. So it's a huge property corporation with a lot of money. You have members of the leadership who I must not be looking properly. I haven't managed to spot these pinky rings that they're all meant to be wearing, but the Rolex watches, they living lifestyles that are extravagant, being treated as celebrities when they go places. There's the encouraging people to donate, put us in your will, put us in your property sale, they're in a constant money grab. They're grabbing money constantly from people that don't have it. We have the recent things they did with the Kingdom Hall, all part of their building their property portfolio, where congregations who own a hall, they've worked for themselves. They've been told to, basically they've claimed ownership of them all. People are being moved to join congregations in a different Kingdom Hall. The original Kingdom Halls are being sold and the money is being siphoned into Watchtower. So you have a money grabbing organization from the top, from people who are discouraged in every single way from getting wealth, from even being comfortable. Recent videos that they've made, just the idea of someone who's into gadgets having the gadgets that they want, that's a bad thing, and they have a dramatization of all of that being sold. That's what we're dealing with. So right there, you have the hypocrisy. Down here, you have the flip-flopping and the backbiting, people being pit against each other, and you have the hypocrisy at the top, where they have it to grab it all from people that don't have it, but it's bad. So how does that all fit into me? So what happened in my own home? Like I said, all of this was stuff that I observed in my own home. Personally, we didn't have a lot. That's the camp that I fell into. We didn't really talk much about it, but I knew there wasn't a lot of it, rather. And, there were times where you didn't know what you're going to eat next. I'm not going to go too much into the detail, but that did happen, where there's this period of time where you literally didn't know whether the next thing you were going to eat was going to be like a full meal. And looking back, someone with my dad's personality, he is a hustler. He is someone, if he wasn't stifled by this religion, he could have really done something for himself, because he's quite intelligent as well. And if he wasn't in this sort of religion, I can only think of what he could have been, because even when he put himself out there, I can imagine there would have been guilt. There would have been guilt for, I'm using this time to go out, to go work, to go sort something out when I should be taking care of the spiritual needs of my family. When the man has to, don't get me wrong, this is his choice, but get up at 5 a.m., 6 a.m. in the morning to conduct a bogus family worship and, sort himself out and jump back to go to the meetings. He was an elder. I don't think I ever remember him not being an elder. So there's all of that responsibility as well. Book study at his house, so he has to be there for that. I think at some point he was the Theocratic Ministry School overseer as well. So all of these responsibilities that people have to take on, all pulling away from time they could be doing things for themselves. It's a shame to think about that. So for me, needless to say, I didn't start out with a good attitude about money. Just really understanding it and having a positive attitude towards it. And so it's something that I've had to learn. I've had to learn after I left the house to kind of redefine that relationship, starting with setting up a business to start with. I think I was 16, but that was out of sheer need, right? Out of sheer need to top up the income. And just really holding on to it so tight and not really with a good attitude, because this was this thing that was hard. And so when I moved away at 18, came to the UK, fortunately I got into personal development and got into spaces where people had a different relationship with it. Just getting into that mindset of, money is a good thing. It's a tool, not this sort of conflicting messages. It's a good thing. You can use it to do this, do that. More importantly, you can have it. It's okay to have it, and it's possible to have it without becoming a horrible, dishonest person. It's possible to have it without becoming someone dodgy. I had to learn that. I had to see that first of all, and then learn that, and then find some way to think this applies to me. So it's been quite a journey. It's been a lot of books. It's been a lot of people spoken to. It's been a lot of programs watched, a lot of people watched over and over and over again, just to start to change that relationship with money. You hear a lot of what a child's going to be is set by the time they're 7, but then there is the possibility, it's hard, of unlearning that, of at least to some extent. It doesn't mean what was there, you're not going to remember it. But you can start to unlearn that through repetition. And that's what I've had to do and still continue to do. So just forming that new relationship with it. So I'm going to get even more personal to what was probably one of the hardest moments in my adult life. In 2014, when the UK visa people had bungled up my application for extending my stay, and because of their mix-up, basically, they ended up saying, you're not allowed to work in the country. My son at the time, he was 1, single mom, foreign country, not allowed to work. That was rough. I'm laughing so I don't cry about it, because, it was a rough time. It was a rough time, not just because, they wrote to my company and said, you have to let her go. She's lost her right to work. I loved it. It was a good setup that I had then. It was a job that allowed me to parent as much time as I wanted, but still enough to cover everything I needed. And I had a great team. People were lovely. And just being told that you're not allowed to work, not just here, you're not allowed to work in the country, period. The other thing as well, because the visa I had back then, before that happened, was one where strictly prohibits any sort of government funds. So essentially any money I had would have to be something that I've worked for, like earned through work. And so when they took the job away, those terms still stayed. So you can't work in the country and you can't get any government support either. I'm thinking, how the hell am I going to feed my child? I had to move out of my house because I simply couldn't afford it, and move into a quote-unquote house share of my savings, a tiny box room. And that was probably one of the hardest times, probably the hardest time in my adult life, and that went on for close to 2 years. And what I really had to, the reason I share that is that was a good time to sort of put together, right, all the clinging on to money from childhood that I learned and saw it and seeing it as something hard and bad, versus the things I had learned sort of from 18 that was, I guess, the flip side of what was there previously. So sort of the abundance approach. Like money can be had, money can be made, and money is good. Money can be a good thing, and you're not a bad person if you have it. And trying to pull those two things together to find my own philosophy that was going to get me through that. So yes, learning to live on really little, making my savings stretch as much as they could stretch, zeroing in on what's important, seeing it as a place of, as something of making choices, and finding contentment in having the things that I needed. I don't know if that makes sense. And having to learn how to plan properly from a place of what's needed, but keeping a good mindset about it all as well. And so as hard as that was, that I would say was probably one of the best things to come out of that period, because I was able to, I guess, put two things together and find my own relationship with money and how I was going to manage it. So now when I think of money, I think of, yes, I can absolutely have it. I can absolutely have a lot of it. I can absolutely use it for good. I mean, if you've watched me for some time, you know that I have shared one of the big things that drives me is I want to be able to put a lot of money towards education for orphans. Personally, for me, education is what got me out, not just from the family home, but from the country. For me, it was everything. And one of the big things that drives me is being able to give children who otherwise would not have a chance to do that chance to get some education, whether it's just to open up opportunities for them by the people they meet, or just to open their minds to other possibilities and thinking that there might be something else. And so when I think about how money can do that, how money can be a good thing, that's exciting. And that's something positive that can come from money. It doesn't have to be this complicated relationship like it was. It doesn't have to be this messed up thing where you're told all these bad things, but then you're groveling to people who have it and talking behind their backs and getting mixed messages. So if you are an ex-witness, like I am, which I'm sure a lot of you will be, this was me talking to you and sharing what is probably a shared experience that we have, the potentially complicated feelings we may have been raised to have about money, and probably in some ways still holding you back. It doesn't have to continue like that. It doesn't have to be like that. It can change, which is why, part of what I do in my other life right now is that I am a money management coach. I'm a budget coach to women. I only work with women right now, where I take them from not having the skills, the tools to make a budget, to plan, to manage money, take them from that, coach them for 12 weeks, lay those foundations, how you make a plan, how you assess what's important, do it together, do it for them, and send them on their way, feeling like they have the tools in their hands to actually do that. And it is possible. You don't necessarily have to work with me. That's not why I'm saying that, but it can be learned. And the thing with skills, when you have them, they're yours to keep. You can't usually not lose a skill that you have if you keep using it and if you keep practicing it. The longer you let it stay the way it is, if it's not something you're happy with, that's another thing that they continue to take from you and stopping you making the most of whatever life you have left. So in these millions of people that have lost jobs in America, or the thousands that have lost them here in the UK, wherever you're at, where you're coming from in your mind is going to be a huge factor on how you plan the next steps. On the next step, you plan for, right, what am I going to do? What approach am I going to take to look after myself, my family going forward? And being really free to explore what capabilities you have, your potential for creating an income, and having that without having any voice in the back of your head making you think it's a bad thing, thinking it makes you a bad person, because it absolutely doesn't. People that are good without money, with money. People that are not very nice people, they're not very nice people. Money didn't make them that way. That's who they are. It just amplifies who they are or who they are not. It is simply, as I teach women, it's simply a tool. Money is simply a tool in your hands that can do things for you. It's up to you what you choose to have it do, whether that's something for you personally or for other people, whatever matters to you. But like, it's not a bad thing, guys. I promise. So take some time. I can't believe doing this. I feel like I'm doing a coaching session here. But take some time, maybe over the next few days, and really think about what the whole concept of money, what sort of feelings it brings for you, and see if there's any beliefs, perceptions about it out there that may not be healthy, that may have come from this religion, and try and challenge that and try and undo some of that, because I want us to do well. I want us that have left to go on and do something rewarding with ourselves. And a lot of things need money, not a lot, but sometimes they do. Even if what you want to do is give of your time or something, then it helps to have the money that's going to look after your needs while you put your time somewhere else. So it's a part of life. We kind of need it based on this system of society that we've created. And if you have a hang-up that's stopping you in the back of your head from going for it, you're cheating yourself out of being able to have the full potential. Okay, I'm going to stop because this video is much longer than I thought it was going to be. Don't get me started on money. I just go on and on and on. It's now one of my favorite topics. It's now one of my favorite things. I love planning it. I love budgeting it. I love telling it where to go, telling it what to do. I love looking at numbers. That's another side of me. But I think I've covered everything that I wanted to cover. So I am going to leave it there. Like I said, I want to hear your thoughts. What was your experience with money growing up as a witness as well? And have you actively done anything to change some of that, challenge some of that? I want to hear what you've done. I am going to put a video here for you to go ahead and watch next. And I did say throughout the video as well, subscribe, share the video with anyone who you think will find it helpful. It costs nothing. Share it with them, subscribe, pass it around. The more people hear it, the more of us can get healthier in the mind, and be more rounded people. Okay, I'm gonna leave it there. I will speak to you next week.